could talk about toxic masculinity, and we could talk about, but we never really take the time to go back to the source and figure out like, where does this come from, right? You
Yep.
know, of course. So I may have a delivery that's angry. Like I know for a long time, if Kalisha raised her voice, my wife raised her voice at me, I got triggered. But we don't really spend the time talking about why I got triggered. Like
Yeah.
I had a mom that was a screamer, right? She
Mm,
loved me to death, but she screamed every time she talked to me. She screamed. That was her
mm,
way of talking. So when my wife would raise her voice, that triggered me, and
mm-hmm.
that triggered me, and then it becomes this control thing. Like, yo, who you talking to? You're not my mom. I got one mom. Like, and I'm angry. Why am I angry?
Yeah.
I'm angry because I never really dealt with all of those things. So in marriage, you start doing all this work that you probably should have did before you got married, but it's too late. Now you're in this marriage and it's so convoluted, and oftentimes people don't take the time to just de-escalate by taking a deep breath and saying, okay, you're angry, but that's not about me. But I realize I'm the closest to you, and people typically hurt the closest people
Mm-hmm.
to them, and hurt people. So let me take the time to unpack this. Who's doing that in the midst of anger?
No, that takes a first of all, that takes a conscious
For
awareness
sure.
that something is off. That takes a, what they call it, a awareness of yourself, or just the level of maturity, man, that you don't get until you get it. Some people get it earlier, some people get it later. Like, you mentioned my wife, she's always had something that it took me years to get. You mentioned on the wife side, okay, she knows my heart. This is what I was looking for. So on the male side, Proverbs 31:11 talks about the heart of her husband. This is talking about the virtuous woman, right? Proverbs 31 is the famous chapter on the virtuous woman.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 11 says, the heart of her husband trusts in her confidently, and relies on and believes in her securely, so that he has no lack of gain. And there's another version that says the heart of her husband safely trusts in her. So it's like the same thing you said. If I know my wife is for me, then when we're having beef and we're arguing and shots are being fired, I got to recognize that that's just because of something else. That's not because of me. That's because of some incident or something happened, something landed wrong, some trigger went off, but it's not a reflection of really how she feels about me. And if you start with that point, you know that in your heart, then whenever something goes down, you can draw from that. But a lot of times we don't, because we're just focused on either winning the argument, or we're focused on the offense that happened. But after a while, you got to get to a point where it's like, man, I'm tired of arguing about the same stuff, or I'm tired of arguing in general. And you got to go deeper than what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's easier said than done. Period. But it does take work. I think it gets easier over time, and you start to realize, like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? But I also think a lot of divorces happen because of this whole notion of women need love, men need respect, and when men feel disrespected, that's a whole nother thing. That taps right back into suppressing all of our feelings back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a reason why things happen as adults, is because we're still stuck and we get triggered. So I
Mm-hmm.
just think it's just easier said than done, but we got to do the work, man. We got to do the work.